back to the Anchored Media channel. My name is Tatum Ayomike. I am the CEO and executive producer here at Anchored Media. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to have a successful podcast interview. So first and foremost, when you're trying to decide who's going to be a guest, you need to have two things in mind. Who does your audience want to hear? Who would they enjoy hearing? Who would they benefit from hearing? And two, who's going to also benefit and bring traffic into your podcast? The sweet spot would be if somebody was relevant to your audience, that your audience would love and engage with, and they also had a community of their own that they can then drive to your podcast. That would be best case scenario. But of course, sometimes it doesn't always work out that perfectly, but even still, you should have your listeners in mind first. So make sure that you're not just signing up anybody who has slid into your inbox with a pitch. Choose the best person to interview that's going to benefit your audience. Also, when it comes to interviews, always do a pre-interview first, especially when it comes to people that you don't know, because you want to make sure that the conversation flows, it's not awkward. You also want to get to know them a little bit because there may be things outside of their bio that comes up in that preliminary conversation that your audience would really love. Or you may find that they're just boring or not a good fit after you fully talk to them. That saved you time from doing a full interview that wouldn't be enjoyable for you or received well by your audience. So always take aside about 30 minutes or so to just chop it up, do a preliminary interview with whoever you want to have as a guest, and it'll make the actual interview flow that much more smoothly. And you don't need to record the pre-interview. You're not putting it anywhere. It's more of a quality control check for you. So you can let the person know, like, this isn't recorded, this isn't going to be posted. I just want to get to know you a little bit so that our conversation can go better once we are recording to post the episode. And make sure you do your research on your guests. Do a background research. Watch other interviews and see some of the things that they've talked about before. That way you can ask them different questions or questions in a different way that might bring something else out of them. So doing that background research and learning as much about them as possible in addition to that preliminary interview is going to make the actual recording so much better. Then on the logistics side, make sure you have a clear means of communication with your guests, right? Have a simple link for them to click on at the time of the interview. Prepare your questions in advance and send it to them. Ask them, is there anything that they have that they want to promote or something they want to introduce to your audience? Ask them, is there anything off limits that they just don't want to talk about? And so that you're not offending them or making the conversation awkward once it's time to record. Now, when the actual interview happens, don't ask yes or no questions. Don't lead them into answers where you're pretty much answering them for them and asking for them to agree with what you're saying. Don't steer their answer in any type of way. Don't overtalk your guests. Don't cut them off. Just ask open-ended questions. How? Why? Tell us about your experience with these type of questions, and then just let them go. And then most importantly, listen. So don't have just that checklist of things that you're checking off that you want to ask. Allow it to be a natural conversation and ask follow-up questions based off of what they've already said and let that conversation just flow naturally. And of course, we talked about this in the beginning, having guests is always great to grow your listeners. So I would suggest, as you're trying to find out who should you have on your podcast, that you do a podcast swap. So go to other podcasters who are relevant to your audience and meet the criteria that we talked about at the beginning, and go to them and say, hey, do you want to be interviewed on my show in exchange for me being interviewed on yours? So this podcast swap will give you guys the opportunity to bring value to your individual audiences, but also collaborate to grow your individual audiences. In the description, we have a podcast swap list template that you can download and use to flesh out those ideas about who you want to have on your show and get their information so that you can know to follow up with them. So you can just click that link right there in the description. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you don't miss when we post another video. And I'll see you in the next one.